where there is conflict or there was a conflict, and I was, like relating to my background, okay, being
Yeah, yeah,
Colombian and see this kind of peace process and then moving to the post-conflict.
yes.
This transition must be hard. So I think, initiative as the Good Market, it provides a platform
Yeah.
for people to start to rebuild their lives, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because this was a big challenge. So I mentioned before, the reason I stayed on with that organization is they wanted to shift to a self-sustaining model. So this has always been my interest. I'm interested in, things that are like system work, long-term, sustainable, all of that, which is very different than emergency response relief work, which is what, because of the situation, that's what we ended up doing, right? And so it was really hard during during natural disaster and during a wartime.
Wow.
It's really a hard time for people to be able to think. I mean, you can't even, there's so many checkpoints and things like that. You can't transport your goods to market. Like it's almost impossible just to function, right? So it's a hard time to be building up social enterprises. And so what would happen, and then there's the whole issue of international aid coming in, right? So you would have a place that maybe before the tsunami, people were doing self-sustaining activities. And then they have a whole period where there's a huge amount of grant funding coming in. And then the mentality shifts. And instead of like, with my community, how do we get together and solve a problem? It's like a handout waiting for support, or we have to write a project proposal first before we do anything. There's like this whole mentality shift that happens, that kind of wipes out that collective action of solving problems together. So that was also really frustrating during that whole period. And I think we would find little pockets, like places where it was still more stable, there would still be activities going on, right? So there's a fantastic, fair trade and organic groups that work with huge networks of farmers. And so like they were in stable areas, things were still going. You get energy from, okay, here's like this longer term work that's happening. Or we visit friends like in India, or visit friends in Thailand or Myanmar, different places, and be like, okay. So you just kind of get recharged from people who were able to focus on the longer term work. But the part that was so special about when things finally ended, when there was more stability, when there was relative peace, is there's this sense when you're in a country that's seen as like a mess or seen as violent, and I'm sure you can relate to this, where it affects your sense of pride in your own country to a certain extent. And there was just this powerful feeling of, when the event first started, one, of being able to have people come out in a public space. Like there had been security issues with gathering in groups, right? So to have people come out, interact face to face, have people there from all the different ethnicities and languages and all of that, all in one space, different economic groups in one space, interacting with each other. That was incredible. But then this pride, being able to rebuild a sense of being proud of being Sri Lankan, of what the traditions are, what the products are, look what our enterprises are doing, and being proud of that period, like after the war, that was incredible to just be a tiny piece of that transition. And now you watch this whole next generation that's coming up post-conflict, who everything they're doing is about being proud of where they're from, and it's magic. It's so fun to see. Yeah.
Wow.
So yes, I think in that, during an actual conflict situation, in the heat of being in an area that's dealing with right now conflict, it is very challenging to run things as a social enterprise.
Wow.
Um, right? But as you're recovering from that, and we've seen this all over the world, like, in Christchurch, after after the earthquake, it's just like this huge emergence of social enterprises. And in Sri Lanka after the war, same thing, just incredible.